Welcome to Tales from the Bridge. David Menkin joins us on the show today, and what a delightful conversation we have. He's such a genuine guy, and I'm really happy we got to talk to him. David is an actor who recently portrayed Luke Skywalker in the new Lego Star Wars video game, The Skywalker Saga. So we talk about Star Wars, we talk about David's experience in the industry, and all kinds of other stuff. So we hope you enjoy this one. Let's make our way over to the bridge. So we're here with David Menkin, and David has had parts in film and television such as The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Zero Dark 30, A Hologram for the King, the cult favorite television show Red Dwarf, which must have been so fun to be a part of, I imagine, David. Thunderbirds Are Go, Ron's Gone Wrong, which I took my kids to the theater to see last year. It was one of the first we did, which was interesting. Hearing that you're a part of that, that's exciting. And then now the new hit video game Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. This must be hugely exciting for you, David, because there's not many people that have played Luke Skywalker, so that must be exciting. But
it's to use a word, insane. But the thing is that I've known about this since 2018. And I've not been able to talk about it. I've not been able to speak about it to anyone except for the people that I recorded it with. I didn't know who else was recording, who else was characters. We signed some NDAs that would make you cry. So I've been keeping this to myself for a very long time.
So is that specific to many projects, or is that a Star Wars thing? Because it sounds like just Star Wars is always really secretive like that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The fact that it's Disney, it's Lego, it's LucasArts, all that. Working in games, you have to sign quite strict NDAs anyway. But for this, it was very clear that we were working on something special, and they didn't want anything to leak. So I signed my life away, laser dots on my forehead for a very long time, but worth it.
Did you record this 4 years ago, or was the contract signed?
Recorded it mostly 4 years ago. Did some pickups last year, and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
They link up the graphics to your voice then, right? Is that one main reason why the voice is an early part of the process?
I guess I think because of the way that the Lego games are, it's very specific where they have to make sure that the humor is correct, that it works for both the fans and adult audience, but mostly a kids audience as well. So I think, and this is just me surmising, that it was an important part of the process. So of course they're going to animate around us, but lip sync is something that you do very, very much at the end. So, but I don't know if you guys have seen any footage, but it is so intricate. It is so spot on that I know they spent a lot of time on that. But yeah, I was part of the process from an early date.
Well, I have to give you less credit than I thought. I thought you guys were watching the animation and making your lips move at the same speed as the cartoons. And I thought, wow, these guys are so good. They say it just right every time.
No, unfortunately not. When it comes to animation, when it comes to games and things like that, we record first, then they animate to us, and then we might go back for something called post-viz, which is this section where maybe what they wrote was slightly too long, or it didn't fit with the style of what the entire scene is. But of course, for Star Wars, we knew exactly what we were going into.
Right.
So I think it was very clear what I was doing when I was doing it.
Well, that makes a lot more sense to do it that way around. Yeah.
So with keeping everything kind of secretive, is there, because I've heard, and I haven't played yet, I look forward to playing this. It sounds really, really fun. And I've got kids too that are going to get into this. but we, from what I've read, we're going through. Is it the original series or the original trilogy? We go through the whole plot, or are there twists and turns? Are we getting new story added to the Skywalker saga?
No, this is all 9 films, and
Oh,
then
wow.
you've got some DLCs as well, that I think have just being released today. So for example, A New Hope actually starts with the end of Rogue One, because I don't know if you know, but the end of Rogue One very, very much linked into them uh, getting the information about the Death Star out.
Right.
So so what they've done, instead of starting the moment, I hope I'm not giving too many spoilers here, but starting it with Leia stopping and putting the information into R2, what we get is Vader coming in, and the entire sequence from the end of Rogue One. That's where we
Nice.
start. But you as a player get to choose where in the Skywalker saga you start playing. So if you want to start with the prequels, you can. You can start at 1. You can start at 4. You can start, if you are a fan of the last 3 that were made, then you can start there as well. It doesn't matter. But what happens is that, of course, certain areas. So, for example, I'll give you an idea. In A New Hope, you're on Tatooine, but you don't get to go to Jabba's palace, even though it's a slight open world theme. That only unlocks when Han is frozen. So,
Right.
so the intricacies and how they've had to blend everything together is kind of amazing. But yeah, you get to play a hell of a lot of characters. You get to you get to play as Luke if you want, but if you are playing with if you are playing a Jedi, then of course you have, depending on where you are in your Jedi training, you then get to use the Force to do things. If you are a character who used a gun or laser, you get to use that. So everything that
Right.
you do is dependent on the character that you're playing. And then, of course, depending on who you're interacting with based on the movie, you can switch to them and then use their powers. So I'm waffling.
Very
I hope
cool.
that made sense. But
Mhm.
I mean, there are tutorials and there's info online that's much clearer than what I can tell you here. So,
Mhm. Well,
Well,
I
it's
look
very
forward to it.
it's very ambitious, right? Like, because in this particular franchise, you're dealing with fandom that is so educated
yeah.
and detail oriented, and like, they know collectively so much that I mean, I imagine you really got to get everything just right.
That's the thing. That's why, as far as I know, the game was delayed. Not just, I mean, it wasn't just due to the fans; it was also due to a pandemic. But people having
Right.
to work from home, everyone had to pivot. So, I can only imagine what things were like at TT Games trying to get this game out. But I know that the fans have been waiting a very, very long time for this, and for me as an actor, it was a moment of absolute elation that I got to play Luke Skywalker, and then this feeling of the fact that I have really big boots to fill. I
Mhm.
have, and there's going to be a lot of scrutiny, but from what I can tell, people have been at least very, very kind to me, in person and on social media. I have no idea what's out there, but I'm not Mark Hamill, so there's certain things that I'm going to do slightly differently. But I did a lot of work to make sure that I sounded like Luke.
Ever wondered what it takes to make it in the movie business? Peel back the curtain with 4-6 Success Filmmaking. 4-6 Success Filmmaking is where filmmakers share their stories and the secrets.
It's beyond competitive out there.
There have been movies that it's taken me 10 years to get made.
Don't wait to create. Like, you've got to just keep making stuff.
Tune in to 4-6 Success Filmmaking for your dose of cinematic realness, direct from the voices that have lived it.
Hmm. If I could say something that would make you feel good about this, is I'm sure Mark Hamill really appreciates you. I'm not sure if you've had any conversations with him, but he is such a sweet man. He's progressive. He's smart. He's got your back. Um, Now, have you interacted with him? Is there? Do you think that'll happen?
I've never had the honor. He is someone who I respect as an actor because he's someone who found voice acting.
Mhm.
He is someone who has found the ability uh, to make life happen just using sound. Um, and I think that he he probably was quite hamstrung by this amazing project that he was on very early in his career, and he had to make changes, and he had to see what was available to him. And he really went all in when it came to voice acting. He's played some amazing characters. I don't know if you've heard his Joker from
Yeah.
Batman.
Oh, yeah.
It's
The
it's
Joker would be
astounding,
it'd
you
be
know.
one of the best voice acting jobs that I'm aware of. I would
Absolutely.
say.
And he is, yeah, I know people who have worked with him, and all the stories are true. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, but uh, but yeah, and I don't want to bother him. I don't want to send him a message and go, "Hey, can you listen to what I've done and see if it's okay?"
Right.
But yeah, I hope I haven't let him down. That's the only
I
thing I
I
can say.
don't think you have, David. I think that he's honored to have you represent something and to pass that on. He just seems like that kind of guy,
Yeah,
and
he does.
from what I've heard, well, you've done a great job, and I think you'll get lots of praise for it. And any of this, because yeah, you're Marty. You were saying that there's a lot of, and well, you said it too, David. That big boots to fill.
Yeah.
Star Wars fans can be very critical. It's happened in the last few years, but I think I hope that's fading away, and people can just know, hey, Star Wars is about having fun, and that's what we all want to do, and honor the people and the creators like yourself, the talent that gives effort to bring it to life. That's what we should all be grateful for, and it's a celebration of a beautiful story.
Hey, I am a fan of both Star Wars. I'm a big sci-fi buff, so I know how it feels to have this sort of direct umbilical to my childhood through something, and then when something new is made, I know that feeling of it messing with all the emotions that I have connected to it because it's a direct link to my childhood. So I
Hmm.
understand why people are critical. I understand why they write messages like "You ruined my childhood" to some of my colleagues. Um, but um, but at the same time, I don't think they realize that it you know they're just thinking about themselves and they need to get that out. But I have a feeling that if they knew that certain people are getting thousands of those messages because it just doesn't fit in with the way they see their project, then
Hmm.
that's hard. Yeah.
Hmm. And yeah, I hope it's a thing of the past and people can just let go of that, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But now's the time to celebrate a new game that's fun and introducing young kids. Like I've got toddlers, so I'm excited for them. They're just starting to learn how to move their thumbs in the right way. So it's exciting to be like, oh, you get to be introduced to Star Wars now and Lego
Yes.
Star Wars, which is so. I had fun as an adult playing those games. The other ones that had come out. So I'm excited for my kids, and you're part of a new generation of kids learning to game and Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything better?
No.
I'm And the problem is that the fact that they have opposable thumbs now means that they're probably better at gaming than I am. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, my mom didn't let me have consoles when I was little, so all I got was an Amiga 500 because it had a workbench. That
Oh,
was
nice.
I was allowed that so I could play a few games, but the most that I got to do was like worms and things like that before
hmm
before I became an adult and then could make choices myself. But man, the guilt still is there. I've got a PS5 finally, and I feel bad at the end of a day if I'm switching it on, going, have I done all the stuff that I was meant to do today? Okay, and then
Yeah,
I'm off. So
yeah.
Nice.
You said you're a sci-fi fan or buff. Like, what
yeah.
are you? Do you have some? So we like talking about books. Are there any books that stand out?
Oh man,
What's your favorite? What's
I was introduced, for example, to Isaac Asimov when I was a teenager. So I got to read, these old moth-eaten paperbacks when I would go to my family's cabin. So I
Mhm.
got, I was introduced to iRobot, to the laws of robotics, and I fell in love with that, and because of that, I then um, started reading a lot of uh, the sci-fi classics. I forget what they're called. They're all paperbacks, and they're sort of numbered, uh, and I have several of them.
oh,
he's
Marty's going
yep,
for the book collection.
Sci-fi Masterworks. Is that
Oh,
what it is?
Masterworks. Yeah, I've got a
Yes,
few Philip K. Dick of the Masterworks
exactly.
collection
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Marty, is it
With these
Sci-Fi
guys?
Masterworks? Oh, yep, there we go.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
they
the
look.
Golanch, right?
Yes,
No,
they
no.
look slightly different in
Or it could be.
North America. Let's
There's
see.
this guy's too. Oh, these are
There
the
it is.
Masterworks. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
science fiction masterworks. They're amazing.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
These are
those are
great.
by Galantz, and
Yeah.
they cover a lot of the classics. I think almost all of Philip K. Dick's novels have been uh, published under that name as well. But
Mhm.
that's
Yep.
good.
Read a
Good
lot of Philip
gateway
K.
for you.
Dick. Read a lot of Isaac Asimov. And strayed a little bit into fantasy and stuff like that when I was in my 20s. So I read a lot of Garth Nix, for example.
Oh yeah.
Um, but when I was at NYU, it was at a time when we had an NYU channel, and it would just show movies, and clearly it just showed the movies that the people running the station really wanted to see. So we had Dune on loop, and I went from just having it on in the background to sitting down and watching it whenever I had a free moment. And
hmm
my friend Natalie and I, we would just watch it again and again and again. And then it was the only thing that I sort of did when I would go to comic stores and find special versions of the movie. So like different cuts, and where they would show the deleted scenes and all that kind of stuff, which is so easy to find now because of YouTube. But
Yeah.
hmm
but back in the day, I was just so hungry for it. So you can
hmm
imagine how I felt when Villeneuve came with his new version. And
Hmm.
I know you guys have just done a podcast about the film. I think just at the turn of the year, right?
Yeah,
About
in the
you
fall.
reviewed the
That's right.
film. Yeah.
hmm
Well, why
Um,
don't you tell us more? How did you feel exactly when you heard about it, and then when you watched it and listened to it?
oh man, I just get stuff like that. See, as a fan, I get scared because I know what a monster that book is. I know what happens to people when they deal with the material because they want people to understand the material, and therefore they put too much information in, and then we get lost. And I felt that with this film, they did something smart. I think it just turned into a story about a family, and then everything surrounding that, and of course um, we're going to see more of the political machinations in the second film, I think. But
Mhm.
but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I have friends who have no interest in sci-fi who fell for it. They felt that they said it felt slightly too lingering, but um, but well, I was very happy. And I don't know if you guys have seen the Foundation series that went on. It was on Apple TV as well.
Yeah.
With that, I felt that they did something smart because, of course, time moves on so fast. The human being becomes insignificant. So it was very interesting to see how they were going to change, how to give us, the viewer, a chance to attach ourselves to the characters. Well, you make some of them um, genetic copies. You have others go into stasis. Such smart moves by people who care about the material. So
Mhm.
I love it, and um, I got to do some behind the scenes voice work on the new Halo series as well. I love watching the process of watching somebody who is clearly a fan try to make other people into fans.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, and um, and that is kind of my job as well.
Mhm.
Um, so I got to become a fan of Thunderbirds by being cast in the show, and that was my first experience of meeting a property that was so revered, and so people were so scared of us messing with it because it was such a deep part of their childhoods. And it was it wasn't just people who were kids in their 60s. They re-aired them, especially in the UK. I think it's 3 times. So 3 generations got a chance to watch the show, and then we came in here. But what they didn't realize was that, of course, that it was all these people who loved the original show, and
Mhm.
it was their mission to make children fans of of not just Thunderbirds but the Anderson canon.
Mhm. I grew up with that. I'm pretty sure. So we're in Canada. I don't know if you knew that. We're just
I
outside
could
Toronto.
kind of hear it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
I don't hear it. That's the
You mean
weird.
our total lack of accent? Everybody else speaks funny except us, but we speak
Um,
perfect newscasting English, actually.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. And
but
the thing is, it's bleeding into me because my best friend growing up was from Mississauga,
Oh,
so
awesome.
I couldn't help myself.
yeah,
A,
B.
so yeah.
yeah. We're about a half hour from Mississauga. We're not far at all.
Okay.
Yeah, just outside of Toronto. But and where are you? You're in London right now,
I'm in
David.
London. Yeah.
So
So
whereabouts in London are you?
I am in an amazing place called the Barbican, which is this weird place right in the center of town, right by St. Paul's. And
Okay.
during World War II, they bombed the crap out of this neighborhood that I live in because they were trying to hit St. Paul's because it was a symbol
Mhm. Yep.
and they could never hit it. But they hit this part of town a lot, and it became the place where anything that was destroyed in the Blitz, they would sort of cart it off to, and it became this wasteland. And all it had was train tracks running through it.
Right.
So they created this massive competition where they tried to find housing and a cultural center. These guys won, and it is this brutalist concrete uh, jungle with with a lake in the middle of it, and and it's a art center with theaters and concert halls and cinemas and stuff like that. So and it's kind of famous architecturally, so it's worth a look. It's turned up in a lot of sort of dystopian shows as well because it does look kind of like uh, slightly futuristic, but also Eastern Bloc. And then on the inside, it's these amazing open spaces. It's wonderful. I love it.
Very cool.
Oh, that's great. I love talking to people that are over there and where are they right now? Because last time I lived there for a few months, but I was in the north. I was in Whetstone, which is just around Finchley. So you probably know
I used
Finchley.
to live in Whetstone.
You lived in Whetstone?
I lived in Whetstone.
And that's an obscure little place, isn't it?
Yeah, Tottridge and Whetstone on the Northern Line. Yes.
Yeah, got the Todridge and Barnet line,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
oh, that's crazy. So my uncle was he's retired now in the army, so I would stay in the army barrack. You remember the
I
army
know
estate?
exactly where they are. Yeah.
Yep, yep, yep. Oh, that's interesting. And I used to
Small
take
world.
a bus a bus into Southgate, and I worked at a Virgin V shop many years ago in
Wow,
Southgate.
that doesn't exist anymore, but it
But you
was
know the area.
yeah, yeah. Oh no, Southgate exists, but Virgin V does not exist anymore.
No, it doesn't.
No,
The V
no.
shop.
Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah.
cool. So,
Well,
well, go ahead,
I
Mike.
got to get in my London story here. I took my
Yeah.
my wife and kids to London for a trade show that I was working years ago, and we've never been to London before. Actually, I had been to London once, but briefly, in my backpacking days. And we got something on Airbnb or whatever it was, that we could afford. And we got there and we were a little surprised. We're like, "Ooh, this is right on the sort of border of an uncomfortable neighborhood." And but we didn't really know where we were. We had a great time. Then we ended up in Edinburgh and we were at a games cafe and we found the European version or the London version of Monopoly. And we look on, Baltic, or the very, very first property is Whitechapel, or maybe the second. And we're like, "Oh, Whitechapel, that's where we were. Oh, and look where it falls on the the socioeconomic brackets of all the London neighborhoods." I'm like, okay, now
Yes.
we know where we stay. Yeah.
And it's about to change massively
Mhm.
because we have a new train line that goes. It's going to connect east and west now,
Ah,
and it's going to completely. Well, it's already regenerating that area.
mhm,
So,
Hmm.
but yeah,
Wow.
I can imagine that when you got there the first time, it was a bit sketchy.
yeah, it was like a
Mhm.
4-year-old and an 8-year-old. But there was a local pub. We just went to the closest pub, and that's where the locals were, and it was great. It was like a legitimate experience, right? Of like not a lot
Mhm.
of touristy frou-frou going on there.
Exactly.
Oh, very cool. So I've got to ask you, David, about you working with Tom Tykwer, because he is one of my favorites,
Oh
and
wow, yeah, he's one of mine.
and you got to work with him, which is fantastic. So David worked with Tom for a hologram for the King, which you worked with Tom Hanks and
Yeah.
Ben Whishaw, who, I mean, these guys are just fantastic. But Tom Hanks and Ben Whishaw were in Cloud Atlas, which was partially directed by Tom Tykwer,
Yes.
and Tom did the score, which was one of my favorite scores of all time. And then he recently worked on The Matrix Resurrections. So can you tell us about Tom and working with him and
Yeah. Yeah. I could talk about that man all day. He's amazing. He is a self-confessed workaholic. I remember one night we were out in the middle of the desert. So I was already, getting to have a master class with Mr. Hanks every day, but I was really noticing how hard Tom Tickfor worked, and he was just wolfing down some food so that he could move on to the next setup and stuff. And stupid narcissistic actor decides, well, I'm having a break. He's having a break. I could probably talk to him right now. And I said, "Hey, Tom, I have a question for you." And he sort of just, I saw him slump, and I went, "Oh, no, don't worry about it." And he went, "No, no, 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 I've got time for you." And I said, "Why do you put yourself through it? Why do you write it? Why do you direct it? And why do you also um, write the score for the films that you make?" And he said, it, in the beginning, he had no choice. It was what he had to do to save on money and to make it happen. And as time has gone on, he said, what happens is that you become a bit of a control freak and you become someone who wants things done a certain way and wants their vision transferred. And sometimes it is easier to collaborate with someone else inside your own head than it is to collaborate with someone outside it.
Oh.
And he
Mm.
uh, and that's the amazing thing. He, you know, we had an edit of the film so quickly while we were filming because he would send it back to his amazing team in Germany who would put things together with his temp score, and his temp score would be, where, and I said, uh, as someone who has trained in, I train in musical theater, I sing. And I said, "Well, do you write the music before, or do you write it afterwards?" And he went, "I write it before because it helps me actually set up the film." And I said, "Well, what about length of scene? What about making a song or a piece of music too long or too short?" And he said, "Well, that's the thing. He builds it in everywhere. So that's why you have slightly repeating motifs, and you have moments where he can expand and contract that moment. He's a genius, and he is
Hmm.
very kind with it, and he's very benevolent with it, and he always has time to explain. He has time to listen. Um, I was so lucky to work with him.
Yeah. And you were working with a couple of geniuses because, I mean, Tom Hanks is kind of one of the greatest of all time when it comes to.
Yes, and that's the other thing is that you're out there in the desert and you're expecting a man with his full entourage, and you're expecting Hollywood to come in the door. And the only thing that is Hollywood about him is when you get to work with him, because you find yourself getting 3 to 5 times better than you ever were, because you're just talking to liquid gold. And
Hmm.
and but he was so down to earth. I introduced myself. He thought I was a fan out in the desert, and I went, "I'm not a fan. I'm David. I'm here to work." And he went, "Oh, oh," and I went, but I am a fan." So I and then he went, "Oh, great," in his typical Tom Hanks way, and he went, "Come and have dinner." And so he invited me and the two girls who I worked with, Christy and Megan, and we had dinner with him, and he was just interested in us, and
Yeah.
he um, and he's been the kind of person that whenever he's in town promoting something, we'll get an invitation to come and see it. We'll get to go and say hi, because he's that guy. He is
Yeah.
he is the most wonderful guy who surrounds himself with wonderful people. And yeah, I was so lucky to work with that guy. Sorry to gush, but there's
No.
there's no way around it.
No. Well, the two greats right there, Tom and then Tom.
Yeah,
But yeah, Tom Hanks does seem like one of the most genuine people. It's refreshing. It must have been refreshing for you to becoming an actor, a greater actor yourself, to be with someone that great. Like you said, it just you're dealing with liquid gold. I mean, how does
yeah,
that not
yeah.
affect your ability to act, but also humble you to the point of realizing being good like he is going to help me be, you know the things we say, the way we treat other people helps us get further, and in your industry for sure.
And he went out of his way to make us feel comfortable on our not only our first day, but every day and our until our last day, because you are nervous when you step onto something that big and with such talent. And he just made us feel like colleagues,
Hmm.
and you don't meet that all the time. I've worked with some amazing people in this industry at the very top of their game, and they're all like that. And then I've met with some people who are very much in the middle, and you would know who you know their names. Nothing like that. Nothing.
Yeah. 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 No,
So
that's very nice.
him, Meryl Streep, Emma Thompson, all those people. I'm just throwing plugs and clangers at you here, but they were all absolutely amazing to work with.
Well, being kind and generous and good to your colleagues and the people you're working with goes a long way,
Yes,
for sure.
yes,
It really does.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
made me realize that it's up to me to make sure that if someone is starting out in their career, and working with me, I make it my job to make them feel comfortable, to feel good about what they're doing, so that they can do a good job rather than have to work through their nerves. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I've learned a lot from working with great people.
No, that's great. Just to call back to video games, you do
Yeah,
have another game coming up, or coming out soon, do you not?
Y-
Squadron 42?
Squadron 42. Yes. that's another game that has been there for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I am a very, very small cog in that wheel. And every so often, I will be reminded of something that happens. So suddenly there was artwork for my character released,
Right.
and and I, it was called to my attention. Um, I recorded for that game years ago now. I can't even remember when I did it.
Wow.
So, um, so if you want me to tell you about my experience on it, um, a whirlwind, and I have absolutely no idea how I fit into things.
Well, is that common then in a way with video games? Because it seems like a different process. Because you've done Assassin's Creed,
Yeah,
uh, Valorant, um,
Valorant. Yeah,
Valorant, and then in Squadron 42,
yeah, and I've been part
Star
of the
Wars.
Battlefield Bad Company, which was this big version of the Battlefield sort of games back in the day. And it used so, for example, Battlefield, when I did it a long time ago, I think 2010, we got to do ensemble record because it was all about getting us to work together, and that was where we found the humor and the connections. But for the most part, all we do is we stand in a studio by ourselves.
Really,
Yeah, because it's so difficult to schedule everyone. It is so difficult, and it's not like a movie where you have 2.5 hours of stuff. This is 26 100, depending on the game, even more hours of footage, because it's not just the storyline. There might be an open world element. There might be interactions with other characters. There might be um, DLCs, which is downloadable content. It now means just another version of the game where, after you've played the first one, you can then add to it, and it becomes a part of it. These things are huge, and if they were going to get us all into the room together, first of all, the logistics would be a nightmare. Um, so,
hmm
so for the most part, we go in one by one. I do get lucky sometimes where I get to work with one or two or four other people, but it's very unusual. And that kind of stuff is happening in animation as well. Sometimes you'll get an ensemble record, as they call it. Thunderbirds was one of them. I did one called Space Chickens in Space, which is coming out on Disney Plus tomorrow. Um,
that sounds
and
fantastic.
Disney, yeah, Space Chickens in Space is incredibly bonkers, and I get to play my just wannabe hero, but actually complete chicken fantasy. So he thinks he's Han Solo, but he's not. So
Hmm.
that's Chuck.
That's
But
coming
yeah,
out on Disney Plus when? Sorry, that's soon.
Disney Plus tomorrow, I think. At least in Europe, it maybe North America as well. It was supposed to go on Disney XD, but then they shut down that part of Disney.
Right.
So we sort of went to smaller things around the world, and now we're coming back to the mothership.
Hmm.
So
Right.
And
yeah.
just
Wow.
think of the sequels on that one. You can have space pigs in space and space dogs in space and space cats in space.
The
It's just
Muppets have something to, yeah, exactly.
Well, they've got the pigs in space. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
But yeah, I wish that I would get more of an opportunity to work with people, but that's why we have amazing directors for games who
hmm
will take on any persona for you. Um, and Jason, the guy who directed us for Star Wars Lego, he was amazing. He's an actor himself, so he knows how hard it is, and
Right.
he'll just turn himself into a pretzel to make us happy and to get the product out of us.
Wow. And are you doing a lot of this in London, or are you flying to LA to do this, or is a lot of the work in London?
99% of it I do here.
Really?
We
So,
have,
do you
yeah.
ever do they ever say, David, you got to do British accent? You've been living here long enough. Come on.
I'm terribly sorry, but my English accent is like Julie Andrews on acid, and I don't know why. It's
That's
it's
very
either
common.
way too
Very
posh, or
common.
I sound like The Only Way Is Essex, which is a terrible, not a terrible. It's a show, one of those reality shows over here. But the thing is that I'm half Norwegian. I play a lot of Scandinavian characters. I play a lot of American characters. I feel that here in the
Right.
UK, there are enough British people to do great jobs at that. So I'm here to bring some authenticity for other parts of the world. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's great, though.
I don't usually play British characters.
But that's great that you can still play that American voice in England, and that they need someone like you there, and that you can stay there. That's what
Yeah,
I'm looking for.
that's the thing. Here in the UK, I get to sort of have one leg in the States and then one leg in Scandinavia, and I
That's
get to
great.
work as all those different things. And yeah, my dad worked in oil when I was growing up, so we moved around a lot. And the closest thing I have really to home is London. I go home and visit family in Norway. I've just been to New York to visit family there, but this is sort of where I belong, where I can be a
Nice.
little weirdo.
So, David, if anyone wants to follow you online, where can they find you, and where can they hear what you're saying out there?
They can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at David Menkin, and links to the stuff that I've done, so my IMDb and the highlights from games and animation that I've been part of. All of it is there, easily
Awesome.
found. And I like to reply to people, so I'm very good at responding to people who are nice to me. I
Yeah.
guess is the way to put it.
Well, I think you got some good praise coming your way. The game
Thank you.
is really exciting. Lego Star Wars, check it out. And then we're gonna put some links in for where you can find David, and even talk to him, and let him know how great of a job he did at portraying one of the most legendary characters of all time, Luke Skywalker, because that's awesome. Thank you so much, David. We really appreciate you taking the time, and all the best with this new game and everything in the future.
My absolute pleasure, and thank you so much, guys.
Cheers.
All
David.
right.
Take care.
All right. Take care.
Guys, all the best.
All the best.
Thank you. Well, we hope you enjoyed that one. We'll be watching David's work in the future, because I think he's got some good things coming his way. We really appreciate David taking the time to talk with us on the show. Look in our description for ways to connect with David and to see what he's up to next. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Until next time.